Hello, everybody. Welcome to Human Caring. Today, I have the pleasure to talk with Molly Birkholm. Hello, Molly. Welcome.
Hello, Shlomy. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing with this.
Thank you. And Molly, you are, when I look at the list of the things you've done so many things in your career in working with yourself and helping other people. And you host a show, you write books, you are advisor, you're a trauma educator, and you have created programs for trauma therapy and resilience program. So I guess we will start someplace and they'll take it from there, see where you're going to take us.
Yeah.
So maybe we should start with resilience. What do you mean is resilience, and what is it? What is resilience?
Excuse me. Don't worry, I don't have COVID. So resilience it's a great question because we use the word a lot, but then we don't really think about what it means. Resilience is your ability to withstand stressful situations without losing your peace. So stress is not a direct experience. Stress is a response. It's because you and I can go and have the same experience, and you might leave and feel totally peaceful, and I might leave and be having a panic attack and anxiety. If you took 100 people and gave them the same experience, it would be the same. So what would make you able to go through it and be fine, and me go through it and not be fine? So that's resilience. Resilience is being able to withstand stressful circumstances and to be able to keep your health, your emotions, your peace of mind in the midst of it. So oftentimes when historically we think, well, I have to eliminate the stress. And this is, yes, of course, it's a good idea to try to eliminate especially unnecessary stressors in your life. Of course, right now we have many stressors that we have no control over whatsoever. So it's interesting because in situations where we have trauma is caused in situation, if you could say there's a common denominator between all types of trauma, one of those common denominators is that in the situations of trauma, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. I didn't have a choice when I was in my car accident. You were a veteran. You didn't have a choice when certain things happened. And so as a result, that experience evokes a whole cascade of responses. And the response is often stress. So, and stress that lingers and stress that causes all sorts of symptoms like panic attacks, nightmares, anxiety, depression, hypervigilance. It's important to list just so people know if they're experiencing them, that could be a real sign that help is needed. So certainly any sort of suicidal thoughts or thoughts that maybe this life isn't worth living. These are situations where, help is needed quickly, and it's important to ask for it. And at the same time, in the midst of this, we can be feeling stress and have the choice, and this is why I went into this, is that we always have the choice of how we can prepare ourselves to experience that stress. So resilience training is really about improving our ability to keep our peace, keep our stability, keep our health amidst stressful circumstances. And even if you're already very stressed, it's not too late. You can start doing resilience training. And you can also use resilience tools proactively before any stress occurs. One of the best times to start doing resilience training is when you are in a peaceful state of mind and have the time and the space to really focus on being well. Although many of us, I don't know about you, but certainly I started using these tools when I was in a deep state of pain and post-traumatic stress and having a horrible time after my car accident 20 years ago. So oftentimes it takes situations like that, or like COVID, where we're all in this collective trauma together. In the United States now, having these very strong civil rights challenges. We're all in this situation together, having to find a reconciliation and a balance and a peace in the midst. And so resilience isn't just an internal experience, it's also external. As a culture, can we withstand going through difficult circumstances? And as we've seen, it doesn't appear as we were as resilient as we might have thought we were. So
it's interesting you said, you know, what caught my attention with all the very important thing you said, it's like we have an ability, it's like a built-in human ability to be resilient. And the way I understand it, it's to bounce back. I mean, we cannot control how life shapes us. I mean, it shapes us and it shaped our entire organism biologically, and then how it's connected to our emotion, to our thought, and basically how do we see ourselves in the world. Is it a safe place or not a safe place? We cannot control it. You know, there is a lot of things involved in it. It's not up to us, but we do have a certain superpower, if you will, that is somehow wasn't encouraged in our society to get to know it from an early age and to build it. But when I think about it, it's a necessity. Life is one big challenge in a way. And beside all the things that our society kind of tell us it's important to learn, which is important, we kind of neglected this part of the ability to kind of be flexible, to adapt to life, and not only to adopt and to bounce back, but also to use it as a platform for exploring oneself and seeing that one have much more potential than what one learned from the surrounding, that you can develop it. And that's, I think it's really exciting. And perhaps this time, as you said, we are all facing a major challenge, a major threat that affects us. It's a certain opportunity to bring that on the top of the topic of our day. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And what we're seeing now is, you know, so much of my work now is working with companies and organizations, and also in the film industry. I'm doing this resilience work, which, you know, and why is that? Because now we're realizing that if you don't take care of your resilience and you don't care for your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual wellness, you won't do well at work. You won't be able to think clearly. You won't be productive. You won't feel good doing it, and therefore it won't turn into a good outcome in the end. Because if we're not living in harmony and coherence with, you know, what it is we feel we're meant to be doing, we'll never be truly satisfied, and we won't do our best job at it because that's not where our heart is. So, you know, it can start out by saying, okay, I went through something stressful and I didn't lose my mind. That's okay, that's baseline. But we want to take resilience even further. I don't want to stop at just keeping stability. I also want to say that being resilient is being able to be in the thick of life's biggest challenges and to be able to be creative, proactive, visionary, innovative. So these very same tools that we use to stabilize ourselves, we can then use to enter flow states and thrive and enter into those deeper states of consciousness where the muse starts to speak to us and we see more clearly what actions need to be taken, so that our thoughts, our words, our deeds are arising from a deeper, more embodied and also connected place where we can really meet heart to heart, mind to mind, in the space of shared collective empathy. And in that space, we can be open and we can really create. And I don't mean this as some spiritual theory. I mean it proactively. Like, a lot of the people I work with are people who are innovators, inventors, visionary thinkers like that, or they're scientists working on COVID vaccines. They're, you know, people who are creating the culture that's helping us try to process these life events. That's real world work. It's not just in the spiritual realm. So ultimately, our resilience should ultimately enter into a creative process where we are then giving other people the chance to find harmonization, to find meaning, to find purpose. And ultimately, resilience will make other people more resilient through the work we've done on ourselves, hopefully.
And I would like to kind of elaborate about with what the last thing you said, because it is a work on ourselves. I mean, we can use it, it's a lot of buzzword, you know, resilience, but to my level best of understanding, it is a serious work with oneself, which, like you said, it's to connect. You mentioned the word embodiment. It's actually to connect to myself through attention to the body, and in some way it's kind of put you in a more vulnerable place. But as you said, this vulnerability it's a connection, it's an empathy. We are in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
and and it's a challenge for most of us, because we kind of got, our culture tell us to, you need to be good, you need to be without any limitation, and you need to never be wrong in a way and be successful. But actually, when we facing facts, how I react to the way life forms me, I do not control how my nervous system react to a threat. But if I dare to stay with it and really kind of be honest and be attentive and be to endure what is, then a lot of kind of unlocking a certain potential in me that will allow me to connect to other people in a different level. And so there is a challenge there to bring it to our culture, isn't it?
Yes. And what you're saying, this is so important, because we teach people to educate their brains, and we say, this is how you're going to be successful in the world. And so, this very Cartesian realm of, this brain, this intellect is what's going to get us ahead. But what we've done is we've overeducated ourselves and completely lost contact with the other 90% of our bodies, which is a huge problem. And if you look at anyone who's stressed, whether it's a veteran or a business person, or now I'm working virtually with some of the hospitals who are, the first responders who are taking care of COVID patients. When you go under that much stress, you start not even being able to live in your body. It's almost like you're living out here somewhere. And so concentration goes, memory goes. And so what you're doing in schools with children, teaching mindfulness, teaching these physical movement practices, is so important, because we need to educate those of us who I didn't get that when I was a kid. I had loving parents. They didn't teach me that. I don't know about you. Did you get that when you were a kid, these tools? Or?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. It came later on, the necessity of it, right? To get connected, something that calls, this is my life, and I'm, as you said, realize that I'm here, and I'm kind of, I forget something. What is it? It's right here, right now. And I think that it's an opening right now, again, the situation we are, because there is just so much we can take without being connected to the body, and it's manifest in different directions in our life. And I think that cultivating resilience, it actually means, like you said before, the way I see it is empowerment and resilience and embodiment connected. And there is more and more understanding that the wisdom that came from the East always advocated that, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And we find in those ancient cultures, and I would say also in indigenous cultures, the Native American culture, the Amazonian cultures, the Aztec cultures, the Andean cultures, that they all were practicing resilience. Before they were going into battle, they were doing ceremonies and sweat lodges and, ceremonies around a campfire to call in the ancestors, and they were visualizing how the battle was going to play out. They were using rhythm, breath, song, touch, all of these things. You can see it across all these native cultures in order to prepare one to experience stress. And then we see that they come back with the wisdom, with the truth, instead of coming back and not being able to sleep and feeling dysfunctional and shut down and moving into addiction or suicidal thoughts. If we prepare people for stress, we can actually thrive amidst it. And it's funny, when I started working with the special operations community, I thought they were going to have trouble talking about vulnerable things. And they laughed. They said, there's no, there's not courage without vulnerability. What are you being courageous about if there's nothing to be vulnerable about? What are you, there's no strength if you don't have something to push against. That's what creates strength. And so I often find the people who are the most resilient, they're the ones who are, they're preparing that something bad not maybe will happen, but will happen. And if I use the right, systems and visioning and staying calm and connected and regulating the nervous system, staying embodied, having my community around me, all the things we know that really work, those people are the ones who end up becoming the ones who we say are, our heroes, or the people who are doing such great things because they're able to withstand. And we all need that right now. It's an all hands on deck. I mean, this.
And it's also exciting time because, as you say, you mentioned the nervous system and the community. Science today show us and tell us in details what's going on in us, in our nervous system, when we are together with others, all the wisdom that kind of other tradition try to tell us. So I'm very excited and very fascinated about really strengthening this bridge of having traditions of wisdom from East and meeting the current important scientific knowledge, and how we can integrate it into the mainstream social organization, if it's healthcare system, if it's education system, if it's corporal working place, family, it's human life. And I think it's such a great inspiration. You were a front figure in developing and co-creating Warriors at Ease in the States, and actually helping bringing yoga and meditation inside the U.S. military, and helping treating veterans with PTSD with those tools that we know that are resilience tools to help us to regulate our nervous system, to understand ourselves, to create community. So what is your take on what's the next step? How can we continue that direction, and what kind of challenges we have?
I just have this vision of this moving out, like the work you're doing with kids and with communities. I see it moving out into every company, every school, every organization, that even if we come into a meeting and we come into it from, let's just start with a mindful minute. Like, let's just breathe, connect with our breath, take 10 deep breaths and make your exhale longer than your inhale. Simplest thing, everyone can do that. It's not woo-woo, you don't have to buy a Molly or start chanting Om, it's very simple. But the quality of the connection, the quality of the conversation, the quality of the elevated thought, the focus, the level of ideas that come out of it. I want that to just be the norm, not like, oh, I'm going to be a mindful business and do these things. That's great. I hope everybody's a mindful business, but I hope it's not just like doing it to be mindful or save some healthcare costs. I hope people are doing it because they see that they will do everything they do better if they are connected to consciousness and they're coming from a place of clarity and focus and of empathy and compassion and caring for people. What's the vision of what's next is really bringing this fully mainstream, where now, I mean, it's amazing. I have, after this interview, I'm working with the head of a very big private equity fund that is, he's like, I want every one of my employees doing this. Because they'll make stressful responses to financial decisions if they're not in a calm place. Like, they will make worse investment decisions. So A, he wants it just from a business perspective. And B, he said, everybody's at home, their kids are going to school at home, like they're stressed. I want them to not leave work and then be emotionally reactive to their kids. Like, I want them to feel connection and family. And that is when I hear that, I'm, yes, this is where we're going. Can you imagine what it would be like if before a political meeting, people connected with themselves and then with each other and felt into past this duality of party line? We always get into this duality of the good and the bad, the Republican, the Democrat, the hero and the villain, you name it, like, gender, always we're going out to polarity. And truthfully, when you keep people in polarity, they're much easier to manipulate. Mm-hmm. And that's a fact. That's why it happens like this. Because if you can push people to the extreme of stress and fear, they will make a decision that is not actually in their best interest. And that is what we see happening in the news all the time. So what I hope is that we can actually start by connecting with what we all want. We all want to be happy, healthy, have enough food on our table, send our kids to a good school, not have violence in our community. You know, right now there's this conversation going on about, you know, police killing people, which is horrible, shooting in the back people who are trying to, are not even fighting against them. And then we have other people shooting at police. No one should be shooting at anyone. I mean, we need to come back to a shared conversation of how, you know, the golden rule that's in every religion. You come from Israel. I come from originally a Catholic background, Danish background. And, you know, so this, notion of the golden rule, love thy neighbor as thyself. It's in Buddhism, it's in Islam, it's in Hinduism, it's in the native cultures, it's in every faith. We have some version of it. If I feel you as if you're me, not as a concept, but actually feel into the fact that Shlomy has 4 kids and they're being homeschooled right now, and he's starting this new amazing project to bring these ideas and this vision and these practices to life in the world. And if I feel into that and I feel what's going on in you, then of course I'll want to help. Of course I'll want to do whatever I can to promote this, because it has meaning and purpose and it's bringing good things to the world. But likewise, we've done it in the prisons, where we take people who, you know, are the separate gangs in the prison, and we have them feel, what do you think that other gang actually wants or needs? They want to feel safe. Well, and why did you join this gang? Oh, I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to have a community. Okay, so now we both want to feel safe. Are the things we're doing actually creating safety? We can do that with war. We can do that with political party, you know? Yeah, we have different platforms, but at the end of the day, it's really going after the same goal. You know, if you boil things down. So,
but that's in a way, it's a paradox, because this resilience work, I mean, it's a name, resilience, right? But basically it's implied work on oneself in order to get to know oneself, to see oneself, to have a relationship that it's a little bit less identified, more kind of compassionate, in the lack of a better word, but accepting this is what is, but at the same time learning about the human nature and relationship, and seeing that basically we're all in the same boat. So this practice that it's going towards inside is actually connected to outside, and seeing what we know. I had a great talk with the professor from Weizmann Institute in Israel on the embodiment of perception. We know that there is no in and out. We are one part of one movement, but still it feels we kind of got conditioned, and this is kind of part of our kind of way of seeing the world through dualism and separation of time and space, and me and you. And that you know, I'm here and you're there, then you know, it's kind of, there is a surviving thing going on. But it's also part of us. But if the more we dip into seeing ourselves, then we get to embrace also that, and discover that this putting myself in another person's place, and likewise help to connect. And that's kind of the opposite of aggression. There is something else coming into the picture of relationship, human relationship. So it's that important.
And it's a huge line that you're talking about here, because we can and we should feel into even the person who we consider, like, you know, the Antichrist, the enemy, the whatever, you know, politician or person or whatever that you view as the one who's the most evil. Feel into them and feel what they feel like. Now, that does not have to mean that you come around to agreeing with them. There's a huge difference between being understanding of why someone is the way they are, and actually you're better able to meet the challenge if you do understand the way someone is. There's a huge difference between understanding another person who challenges you and accepting their behavior. And I would say that if you do go into understanding your enemy, or it could be your spouse, you're just having a challenge with your spouse. If you go into feeling what they're feeling and understand where they're coming from, then I can better come into a situation where I can find actual reconciliation. I can find actual connection and a field of shared understanding where we can work. That doesn't mean I'm acknowledging, I'm accepting their behavior. Doesn't mean I'm making it okay. I'm just trying to understand the place we come from. And when you look at these people who are creating separation and negativity, if you really feel into them, what I feel are children who weren't loved in healthy ways, people who had abuse, people who were made to feel like their only worth was financial, their only value was having power. That is coming from a place of deep hurt inside of someone. I'm not accepting their actions. What I'm saying is we can understand that that's where this comes from. And then we can enter into a conversation of how I can meet in a space of actually being constructive, like actual constructive behavior conversation. And I mean, otherwise what we live in this, so whatever, am I tilting at windmills? Am I doing a Don Quixote here and saying, no, I don't think so. And the reasons I don't think so, there was a story on the cover of the New York Times of a general in Afghanistan who was going to have to invade a village. And he said, before he invaded the village, he decided to meditate and see what he thought the right answer was. He said this on the front page of the New York Times. He was going to meditate and see what the right answer was. And in his meditation, the response that came up was to go to the chief of the village and just listen to them. Not say anything, just listen. And so he went and he did just that. And at the end of the conversation, the chief said, I feel like you really listened to me, and now we can have a conversation. And he didn't have to invade the village, and people didn't have to die. These are real skills.
But that's the skills that in my world, resilience and all the wisdom I'm bringing comes down to listening. And as you said, you know, when we relate to another person, unless we listen to our own body, we listen to our own inner world while we're contacting the outer world, then there is no contact. And what we know, what polyvagal theory and what we know from neurobiology, that we actually regulate each other. The more I can listen to myself while I'm listening to you, I'm regulating my entire physiological platform and also, in fact, my associations and emotion in that sense that you sense, okay, there is somebody there that is there. It's present. There is a contact. And then something else unexpected could come into the picture. And those are the skills that we are lacking. And this is where I think resilience is important bridge there.
Yes, I love what you just said. And this piece about the balance is everything. You know, we're constantly on a cellular level trying to find balance in the ecosystem of our body. And then we're trying to find balance in our homes. And I've never met your family, I don't know, but I live in a house with a kid and a dog. And you know, I know that we're trying to balance each other out. When I start going too fast, which is my tendency, then my son slows down to the speed of a turtle. Why? It's not because he's not capable of moving more quickly. He's perfectly capable. It's because he's trying to slow me down. Now, when I come back into balance, so does he. It doesn't take him 45 minutes to eat his breakfast cereal in the morning. It's, you know, and we both harmonize each other. So the most important thing we can do, like you're saying, is harmonize ourselves and then bring that out into the world, into connection, into our relationships. So that piece is everything, because what we see now, right now in the U.S., we're having these, you know, the Republican National Convention, you know, last week was the Democratic National Convention. And so we see like people going to such polarities that then the other one goes farther to the other side because they're trying to find, on an energetic level, we're trying to balance. But the only way to balance, the only way is to bring ourselves into balance. And then the other side will have no choice, like on an atomic level. And if you go and listen, there's some amazing scientists out there who will explain this on like you're saying, on a very scientific level. They're in ecosystems, they will come back into balance. When one part starts coming back in, the other parts start falling back in too. This isn't a theory. This is an actual real thing. And try it in your home. Try it with your kids. Try it at work. Bring yourself into balance where you see the polarity happening. It's so funny. You can see it with couples. I have two of my best friends. I know I'm not gonna mention their names, but they both very successful people, like in terms of like monetary and career and all that. It was so interesting when they got together. The husband took a more traditional role, and he really focused on making money, making a living, like, you know, all these things. And the more he went like that, she went where she didn't want to do any of it. She didn't want to leave her house. She just wanted to stay home. And he's like, well, you know, what happened to her job? Like, she was, you know, why isn't she working? Because he was going too far the other direction. When he came back to the middle and came back to spending more time at home, she came back into balance too. She went back to working. She went back to doing the things that really fulfilled her. And we can see that in all sorts of things. One partner spends too much, the other wants to save everything. You know, it's constant. And those polarities, the more we harmonize, the more we're going to see that the same thing playing out in our homes is playing out on a geopolitical scale in the environment and all of these different aspects.
I think it's very interesting what you're saying, and I see in my own study of myself, I realize that, you know, there are nature laws, you know, that kind of, you know, there are patterns in nature around me and inside of me that somehow we never got taught in school. But the more you begin to observe and to listen with your attention to yourself, then you realize that one of those laws, everything is in movement. Actually, there is a constant. It's temporary and it's in movement. And I think connecting back to what we start with resilience is the ability to move on, you know, to let go when we get stuck in the nervous system level or in our narrative kind of story of our life that prevent us to see that it's a flow. And the more we let go of the tension of the body and listen, the more we're capable to improvise with what life brings us. And that's empowering. And like you said, creative, something can come out of us. We're taking part with the laws and not against the laws, but that demands really to study it and to get help, somebody to facilitate the study in a certain way.
Yes, absolutely. And experiment on yourself. You know, you don't have to wait for the study. You can find it very much in yourself, in your own heart and your mind. Experiment even in you when you come into harmony. Like, experiment in your little ecosystems, in your yard, in everything. You'll keep seeing. Yeah, it's so powerful. Shlomy, I'm so sorry I have to go because I have this meeting, but I could have this conversation forever. So
sure. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Molly.
And I send my love to all of the people who are sharing this moment.
Thank you. Perhaps another time again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.